I've got to give you a quick warning before this episode. If you are uncomfortable with discussing any touchy subjects or talking about anything gross at all, just skip this one. You might learn things that you cannot unlearn. So be warned. We've done our best to make this as tasteful as possible. We didn't talk about it in as much detail as we could have, but still, this is a special episode. Don't tell me I didn't warn you. Thanks for joining us to another episode of the My Duck Books podcast. Joining me today is the man who had the guts to read this 3 times. You have my utmost respect, Paul.
2.5.
Anything you did, you have my respect. We've had the best book on our podcast. The longest book is going to be coming up. This is the most disgusting book that's ever going to be on this podcast. I can't believe that we are recording this.
I would thought, Hellraiser would be worse.
No.
Okay. How about Cockraiser?
Yeah, I will have a Cockraiser anytime over this.
Cockraiser disturbed me more than anything.
You just might not want to listen to this at all. This is...
Oh, come on, give it a chance.
Not because Paul said anything.
I think if you can get past the first part, you can get through the book.
Yeah, it's so bad. I read this again. It's been...
So did you enjoy it?
I also have some messages we changed with Paul before we recorded this, and Paul was like, it's good, you can just, in quotation marks, enjoy these stories. So I enjoyed it all right. So be warned.
Well, we're going to start with the tamest one first, I think.
Okay.
And then we'll get progressively more.
Okay, of course, I wanted to listen
gross.
Because I like talking about books, and this is definitely a book to be talked about. When I started this podcast, I felt like this is going to come up eventually, because this is one of the things I'll never forget in my life. And just to give you even more warnings, I read this when I was in high school. I started high school, and it's been about 20 years, and I read it the second time just yesterday. And it's still so bad, even though I'm so much older now and I've been more desensitized to this shit, I guess. But it still got me so bad. I had to stop reading it for a bit when I was in the part we will discuss at the end of this episode.
It's not that bad.
I don't know, maybe there's something that gets me.
Be a man.
So the book is called Haunted. It's by Chuck Palahniuk.
I'm just going to call him Chuck from now on. We're on first name basis.
I think it's Palahniuk.
With each other. I thought it was Palahniuk.
Okay. Whatever it is. So
I hear it all the time. I still can't fucking repeat it.
So on this episode, warning first time, graphic content, disgusting shit. And we're also going to talk about Palahniuk a little bit more. And maybe some of his other books. And then we're going to get into this book called Haunted. I'd like to start with some more stuff about Palahniuk. You watched a bunch of interviews, me too. We're trying to look at some more stuff we could talk about in regards to him. And I found one thing that's kind of interesting, that after his father died, we talked about it in our previous episode, Fight Club, which I highly recommend it. It was a lot of fun. Get on that one if you haven't listened. So he was very depressed after his father died, and he wanted to put his energy into work. So he started doing these events where he would teach people writing and encourage readers to become writers. And he would have these talks. And they made a documentary about this called Postcards from the Future, the Chuck Palahniuk documentary. Have you heard about this?
No, that's the first time I've heard.
It's all on YouTube for free. And it's the best and worst thing at the same time. I think you might have seen clips from it, but you didn't know it was from this.
What clips?
He's teaching writing, and he's talking about life, and he's talking about inspiration, and he's quite young at the time. It was 2003 or something.
Okay.
And
maybe I've seen parts. Yeah.
He's saying really interesting things, and he also talks about one of the stories we're going to talk about today. So the clip's going to be in the podcast later. But at the same time, it's the most amateur production you will ever see. And it looks like one of the first Comic-Cons. Somebody got a camera and just went around the con and just recorded stuff. And there are people pretend fighting each other in pretend fight clubs. And then he's giving a serious lesson about life. It's strange. But I liked a
Cool.
lot he had to say, so I would recommend it. I'll put a link in the podcast description. So this book and like the style is more of a journalist style, and I want to talk about how this was created. Why does it even exist?
Well, I wouldn't say he is a journalist, but I wouldn't say it's a journalist style. When it first came out, people were like, oh, it's sort of like a parody of the reality TV show boom that we were kind of experiencing during the early 2000s, mid 2000s. He said it was sort of, he wanted to create this story of like textures. So he started with things like poems or short stories, and he wanted to create like a best of kind of collection of like horror stories, like something from like the best works of Poe or something like that. Then he would sort of wrap the whole story together in a sort of overarching kind of story that sort of ties everything together. So that's why he kind of created it. He wasn't a TV person. He wasn't even interested in TV. He said he doesn't even watch or own a TV. So it wasn't a response to reality TV show.
Minimalistic, so it's very much to the point. It never drags out. And in this case, it gives you too much too quickly, I would say.
Yeah.
It's a hell of a way to start this book. We'll talk about it later.
The other one recently I finished reading was Lullaby.
Yeah, I have that on my shelf.
Yeah, it's good. Have you read it?
No.
Okay. So he was sort of, when his father was murdered, he was kind of a little bit conflicted about whether he wanted to support the charge or support the sentence of a capital punishment. And eventually he kind of agreed to actually supporting that decision. And he wrote that story as a way to kind of cope with his father being murdered and the murderer being sentenced to death. It's a good story, actually. It's one of his stronger ones, I think, too.
Okay. I got it as a birthday present, but I never read it.
Well, it's quite easy to read, actually. It's quite interesting. It's fun to read, too.
Okay.
Nothing grotesque. You know, it's dark. There's a lot of people dying, but it's not like this one today. The other thing, I finished the Fight Club comics, too.
Oh, all of them? Okay, that's a good update then. What do you think?
I don't have an opinion at all, actually. It's just...
Do you agree with what I said, that the first one, the Fight Club 2, was kind of interesting and clever, and then it devolved?
Yeah, it's all kind of blended into one for me. Yeah, it started off interesting, like it's very, as I said, meta. The only thing that was interesting for me was that I also read, there was supposed to be a trilogy of books called Damned, Doomed, and something else, because he never finished a trilogy. It's about this 13-year-old girl who goes to hell.
Yeah, I wanted to, yes.
And at the end of the Fight Club 3 comic, the daughter or the baby in the comic, she gets adopted by the parents in Damned and Doomed. So that's the kind of link. And they give her a ridiculous name, of course, but I forget what it is. It's some like 7-word name or something.
Yeah, the Damned book, that's the most ridiculous premise.
Yeah.
Like,
it's okay. It's not great.
So you have read it?
I have read it, yeah. Yeah, it's supposed to be a trilogy, and I think the second one was so poorly received, he just didn't even finish it off.
Oh, okay.
I would have read it. I read all his shit, so yeah, why not?
Biggest fan. After you've read Haunted, you had to read
Haunted's
everything.
a good book.
Okay.
It is. It's a good book.
Just the Damned book. So she's a 13-year-old girl that goes to hell, and she tries to make the best of it. Like she gets with Satan. What happens?
No, it's sort of she's a part of a bigger plot that her parents. It's really hard to explain.
That's okay. I just meant like the start of.
Yeah, so she's like a snarky little 13-year-old girl who goes to hell. And she starts making friends there.
It sounds the most ridiculous.
Yeah, it's ridiculous and it's kind of fun. But you know, it starts sort of revealing like she's kind of was murdered on purpose, and her parents were kind of part of the plot, but not for bad reasons. It's really weird. It gets kind of messy as well. Like I think that's why it probably wasn't finished as well. But, yeah, it's kind of hard to summarize in a paragraph the whole.
Yeah, thanks for telling me. I was interested in this, but I never read it. Too many things to read.
Yeah. I think Lullaby would be a better choice, actually.
Okay.
Try that. And if you have time, The Invention of Sound.
Yeah, I was interested in that the most. That was actually the one I wanted to read. We might do an episode in the future.
It's a bit shocking.
Yeah, I'm sure. All of it is shocking. I mean, Fight Club is pretty shocking. We talked about that.
It is, yeah. So,
So Haunted was released in 2006, but the story that's the story called Guts that was much earlier, and then it was made into this compilation of stories, of short stories. So before we say anything about this, I just want to talk about why is this, and is it even based on anything real?
well, his journalistic background, he's quite good at kind of getting stories out of people and kind of digging up information, I think. So his Guts was a combination of 3 stories he heard. One was about a guy he met who was always the same weight because he was missing part of his intestine. Oh, come on. It's maybe cancer or something. Another one was about, I'm giving too much away, an accident in a jacuzzi.
The third one is probably the clip I have at the end of this podcast. He talks about, he found in a newspaper. This is what I was strangely scared of and kind of subconsciously sure of, that all of this is somehow based on things that really happened, be it more or less. And it's just, imagine this book, imagine that you took like a person who traveled the world, talked to all the people, and then gathered like the stories that nobody has ever dared to talk about, and put them in one compilation of stories. And then, just to be more of a controversial prick about it, he built it up to 11 and made it so it's the darkest humor available, and then made you feel bad about laughing at it sometimes, I guess. Do you feel like that?
You make him sound like he's out to do something sinister.
That's what I think this book is doing. Yes, it's very sinister.
A lot of the stories are believable. I mean, not
that's the problem.
Like I have stories today that are kind of similar.
Exactly.
And these are real life stories. So I mean, he's just managed to sort of tie it together in a narrative.
And that's exactly the answer I wanted to get to. We talked about this a little bit on the
But why
Fight
not?
Club episode.
I mean, people love to hear this kind of stuff.
So some people love to hear about this. Some people will never talk about this, and some people are very hurt by this and traumatized. So that's my answer to why this book exists. We talked about this in the Fight Club episode, that he wants to give people space to talk about, bring to surface stories that people hold in themselves and they cannot ever say. And it should help people to be more open about things and feel like it's okay, and also hopefully prevent disaster. Like a warning.
As a warning story.
A lot of these are basically cautionary tales that to things that could happen to anybody.
Well, almost anybody, but yeah.
But could happen easily, yeah. So these stories they exist, and they cannot be gotten rid of. There has to be somewhere, and they're in this book. That's how I feel about this. And it's your choice if you want to have them in your life or not. And the cover of this book tells you what you're going to feel like when you read this. I don't know if you saw the cover.
There's 2.
Oh, what's the other cover?
The one is a glow in the dark cover.
Ah.
That's got like the purple one, and the other one looks like a blow-up doll kind of face.
Oh, the glow in the dark.
Which one are you looking at?
Yeah.
Yeah,
both of them are awesome. So this is a warning for you. And
this book is not like a horror
yeah,
story,
definitely not.
or like a horror book. Don't go in it thinking there's something supernatural or anything. This is just human horror.
And that's exactly why this is the first, because there is no levity of fantasy. It's all harsh reality.
It's not. Yeah. That's probably why I like it, actually. I really like this book. I do recommend it.
I'm starting to be very worried to be your friend.
I'm cutting out all the warning things at the beginning too.
So one more question I have to ask. Like, okay,
Sure.
why do you like this, or why would you read this? Like, who are we recommending this to? I don't recommend this to anybody, by the way. I've been damaged. If I didn't have this in my life, I would have been happier.
I think if you're kind of over the whole like supernatural aspects of shocking stories, and you like something that's a little bit more grounded in reality, but it's just sort of a bit too much over the edge that will shock you. Yeah, I think you could enjoy it. I think some of the themes in the stories are quite interesting too.
Like I can. So what I got out of this book: morbid curiosity and vile, putrid, horrible disgust, visceral reaction. I never knew I could have a physical reaction to reading something. This is
Yeah,
still
I had to stop eating during one
this
of
is
it.
still the worst thing I've ever read in my life, and I don't think it's ever gonna surpass this. I mean, like, just pure feeling-wise bad reaction to anything I've ever read in my life. This is it, I think. Like, you get stories about war and like bad news and somebody passed away and you feel extra sad and you just need to get over your feelings. But this is like hitting you in the face with shit.
No, I disagree. I think like some of the stories you might think, oh, that's disgusting. I actually find them quite funny.
That's the thing.
And the thing is as well, like today I'll bring up a couple of stories as well that one of them is actually quite disgusting, but when my friend told me about it, I was laughing because it's just fucking stupid.
Yeah. That's what makes this such a gut punch, like a sucker punch in your guts, because you don't expect it, and it's kind of funny, and it's kind of like it's written in a way that it's like like you go along the ride, and then you never expect it, and then it hits you so bad with something, and then at the same time it's still funny, and you're like, how am I supposed to even feel about this? So the documentary we discussed in the beginning of this episode, they captured on video how people fainted when he read one of these stories.
67 people, yeah.
I
So
can.
far, in total, or something like that.
So before we get into the stories, one last question. I want to say, how did you get into this the first time? How did you hear about this? Why did you read this?
Well, because I was one of the early adopters of like the Kindle. I bought like the second generation one or something.
Me too.
And one with a keyboard and everything.
Yeah, I had that, yes.
Yeah, it's cool. It's
Yeah, I missed
an awesome
that.
device.
Yes.
And I had it was one of the first things that had the text to audio.
Yeah, I had all that too.
Thing
Yeah,
too.
exactly.
Yeah,
That was awesome. I
it's-
missed it.
Yeah, I still have it. It just doesn't work.
Exactly the
So this is funny. So me and a friend of mine, we decided to go to Thailand to join like a kickboxing school, and I was just going to do the fitness classes and stuff like this. And we bought like the meal tickets for the training sessions and stuff like that. So there's like a restaurant there, and you can get like this sort of prepared by a professional chef for nutrition and exercise and training. I just end up drinking beer and sitting by the pool. So I think I did one thing where I ran up a mountain with a fucking car tire or something, and I was like, fuck this, I'm not doing this anymore.
I never knew they
So-
did that. That's awesome.
No, I didn't really. So I was like, I need to find some books to read. I bought 2 of Chuck's books. Survivor, which I remember I really enjoyed it. I can't quite remember the story of it, but I remember the ending really sort of was amazing. So Survivor apparently is one of his best reviewed books as well.
Oh, I don't know.
And I bought another one, Haunted. I was like, I like horror. This is a horror book. And I sat next to the swimming pool and read it, and I was like,
Fucking hell.
oh, is there a filter at the bottom of this pool? Oh, check it out.
Awful.
Is this? I don't believe it's possible. I might put it to test.
This is exactly what should be happening.
But that's what went through my head. I was like, can I really? Mhm. So that's why I bought it. And I was like, okay. I remember the design bit shocked me, but it didn't linger with me too long. So
It lingered with me very long when I read it. How old were you at the time?
I think I was in my 30s.
Okay, so let's get into the stories, and we're just gonna do spoilers straight on. There is nothing to like hide.
Yeah, and we're gonna kind of do it a bit of a different way. We're gonna put the
Yeah, the first story,
cherry on the top.
the first story that makes everybody stop reading this is gonna be the end of this podcast.
Yeah. And also as well, there are, before every short story, there's like a poem read by the character as well, which the poems are quite interesting, I think. Did you read
Yeah, of course. I always had the poem and the short story. So the
Yeah.
book is
I quite like the poems. Yeah.
the way this book is written, and also like Paul said with the textures, there is like a group of writers that come together, very strange characters or very strange storytellers.
Well, I'd actually like to explain
Okay.
why they've come together. So some people say, oh, they're at a writer's retreat. And it's like, well, yes, but it's a bit unique. So they've answered an ad in a newspaper
Okay.
to say you can be at a writer's retreat for 3 months, no distractions, everything provided, write your masterpiece, da da da. But all the people that have attracted or answered the ad, they're running away from something. They've all done something wrong or bad, and they're maybe illegal, and they're trying to get away. So eventually, the writer's retreat is not what they kind of imagined, but they're basically locked into an old theater house. They can't get out of the theater house. All the food is provided. The guy who's running it, called Mr. Whitaker, that's a twist too. I don't know if you know who he is.
No, I don't know that. So disclaimer, I haven't read all of this because I couldn't deal with it. I read, I think, 6 or 7 short stories, and I reread the first one. Yeah.
Okay, so why is this old man running a writer's workshop? Well, he's not an old man. He looks like an old man. He's actually a 13, 14-year-old boy.
What?
And he's been basically blackmailing nurses who he's been fucking, and because they feel sorry for him because he's such a young, kind of energetic guy and who's dying of this genetic disease. And he's like, well, you've basically raped a young boy, either pay up or I'm gonna tell. And he's just collected all this money. He's like, what am I gonna do? So he's decided to start a writer's workshop. So that's a good twist, actually. I quite like that. Later in the book as well, he's killed and then he comes back to life. It gets a bit weird.
Oh, I didn't know that part.
And apparently he's done this experiment 3 times and it always ends up the same way.
Okay.
People wanting to suffer the most so they can get the most attention, when eventually they get out of the writer's workshop and they create the movie or the book that's based on this horrible event. Who went through the most, who suffered the most. So that's what they're kind of doing. They're sabotaging themselves in this writer's workshop.
That ties very well into what we talked about with Chuck Palahniuk in the previous episode, how he's in the disaster, what it's called, the Apocalypse Club, something.
Oh, the
Cacophony Club or something.
So
the point was to experience raw life and go through a visceral experience, so you have a story to tell. So that explains a lot. Yep.
So that's basically the outline that kind of wraps the story together. So all these writers are basically, they're trying to escape, or they're actually even, some of them are wanted by the police as well. And so this is a good way for them to kind of disappear for 3 months. So that's the main premise. So each writer has a background or a story that they want to tell, and that breaks down into the poems and the short stories.
And so every time there is a poem in front of the story, which I didn't remember.
Yeah, they get up on stage to actually talk about it, and either there's like a movie fragment behind them or something like that. It kind of gets a bit sort of surreal.
All of this is very surreal, even though it's so real. It's so strange. It feels so strange reading this. Even reminding me of reading Fight Club. All the things he writes are such a weird feeling inducing. Like it's too real.
Yeah, he sort of delves into the dark side of the subconscious and the psychology of humans. I like it.
It's written very well, and it's the opposite of the long books that drag out. It's very condensed, and the minimalist style shines like a lot. It's very condensed, very well.
Yeah, I mean, even if you find his material objectable, I think his prose is actually really good.
He can write, yes.
He's a good writer.
Okay, so I will let Paul do most of the talking because, like I said, I'm
a fan.
Paul's a fan. I don't know if I'm a fan. I think this book is something I've never seen before.
No, I was going to say, I might first just introduce the title of the story and you can tell me what you remember from it.
Okay.
Any impression, and I might try to jolt your memory a little bit with other details.
Jolt your memory.
Electric shock style. So let's try that.
Okay, so you pick a story and then let's go.
I was going to say, let's start with something, the mildest one, and I was like, which one is that? Except guts. Okay, why don't we start with Crippled? Because I have a story about this as well, and this story kind of reminds me, if I had to do a game of which character would you be in Haunted?
Yeah, and I didn't read this one.
I'm this guy.
Oh my god, I was very worried when you told me. I was like, what happened? What the fuck?
Oh, come on, it's obvious.
Okay.
I'm not sure if I'd murder for it, but anyway. But okay, what do you remember?
Yeah,
from
this one I read
so-
the last, and or one but last, before I reread Guts. And
Mhm.
I don't remember that much, to be honest. It wasn't as shocking, so I didn't stay up in mind as much. So somebody is investigating something or spying on somebody, and
Kind of.
they are committing some kind of crime, maybe fraud.
Yeah, it's basically insurance
Fraud.
for workers' compensation. Yes.
And
This story actually is written really well because it actually has a really good loop. I really like this. He's investigating a woman who is committing some kind of insurance fraud for a workers' compensation. She's injured, and he's trying to record her to gather information to prove that she's not injured. He gets hurt in the process, and she has locked him into like a room or something, and he thinks, it's okay, I know you're going to murder me because I did that, and I know what you're going through. So basically, I think he was lugging like beer kegs or something, and he got injured during an accident at workplace. He lives a dream. He's getting workers' compensation on Vicodin, Percodan every day.
yeah, I know that part.
This is me. I'm like, yeah.
Oh, I see the connection now. I didn't get that.
Yeah. I'm like, I'm just high every day, laughing at birds. Eventually, some guy drops out of a tree and he says, I'm a bird watcher. He's like, oh, okay. He helps him back to his house. And the guy's like, I need to use the outside toilet. And he's like, yeah, sure, go ahead. He's got a video camera. He opens the video camera and discovers this guy's been recording me, like, changing my car tires and doing stuff like this. I'm done. The dream is over. I'm going to get caught. I'm never going to get a job again. So he murders him and basically takes his job and becomes a private investigator. And that kind of loops around back to the beginning, where the woman has sort of caught him doing the same thing to her. And she's a bit more clever. She just records his confession on audio tape and says, I've recorded you admitting to murder. I've hidden the tape. I'll take you to the hospital. That's it. It's over.
Yeah, the ending I remember, and the part how he murders him with the bugs killing bombs.
Well, he doesn't murder. He just makes him sick. He actually murders him with a wrench.
Oh, yes, that was very... I was like, this story isn't very disgusting. Oh, wait. That was the part I was like, oh, now it comes. There's been something.
So would I murder to stay on drugs and workers' compensation? Anyway.
Oh my god. We should do... What have you learned from this? What did you learn, Paul, from this story?
Keep chasing your dreams.
Okay.
Never give up, kids.
Okay.
What did you learn?
I learned if you're just doing nothing and just pretending to be happy while being high, something's wrong.
We've come out with completely different morals. Okay.
Yeah, so just to reiterate, it's clever, it's well written, it has a point, and yeah, so it's good.
Yeah.
Like, this book is good, but it's disgusting.
Yeah, I know. But that story loop was really great. I thought.
Yeah,
How it just sort of loop back together.
Like,
So
as far
it's
as
quite nice.
like even the poem you just said, and like the story, like, short story wise, this might be some of the best short stories I've ever read because they are so well thought out.
Yeah.
So I admit it's good, but it's disgusting.
No, that wasn't that bad.
Yeah, this one was okay, but it's still the description of the murder was very graphic.
Oh, so I do have a story.
Oh.
Because about investigating people on workers' compensation. A friend of mine during high school, this was his father's job actually, to investigate people who were claiming workers' compensation for injuries. And one guy who apparently had a terrible back, couldn't work, so much pain. He was recorded at the beach carrying some chick on a bikini on his shoulders. And he's like, woo, yeah. And yeah. Went to court, they saw the video and said, yeah, look, clearly you're okay. So that was a mild story I have. But yeah, these things happen, so they're real things.
Okay.
The Earl of Slander. This one's for you. I subconsciously picked it for you.
Subconsciously picked it for me.
You got something in the notes, so it's very interesting.
So I read this and I messaged Paul and I was like, I went to write something, but I would be arrested. And Paul was like, I know which one. And I was like, yep.
Yeah.
So this story deals with child pornography.
Yeah, it's an element of the story. It's not
Yes. Not
dealing with it.
Okay,
Yes.
but it's a big part of the story.
Yes.
And
But the main character is a journalist. So he was like an entertainment reporter, and then he wrote a bad review about some movie or something, and the entertainment companies are like, yeah, look, get this guy off. We're not giving you on the newspaper anymore exclusive access to our stuff. So he's sort of being pushed aside. So he's looking for a story to write. His dog gets sick, and he takes him to a
so
vet.
many levels on this.
And he discovers that the vet is like, I know you. We grew up together or something. And then he realized, no, you're like a childhood star, Danny or something.
Yeah.
And Danny was a childhood star who just grew up to become a vet. Lives a very ordinary, simple life. Nothing special, nothing scandalous at all. Pitches it to his editor, and the editor's like, people don't want to read this. They don't want a happy ending. Find something good. So what does he do, Philip? Come on, be a man.
I'm not sure we should go into that much detail.
No, just summarize it. He sets him up.
Yeah. So he
Basically drugs him.
Yeah, but I'm not sure how or why, or sorry, when or what.
So he does it. The vet agrees to do an interview. He's like, well, my life's not that interesting. You won't get much from this. He's like, that's fine. I'll come over and we'll do the interview. Basically, drugs the wine.
Yeah.
He's downloaded, the journalist has downloaded all this like weird pornography from the Soviet Union and put it onto his computer, put drugs around his house, like heroin or other stuff, puts a gun in his mouth and kills him.
Yeah.
And he wins the Pulitzer Prize for this, story that he's broke. And it talks about the concept of, how do you say in German?
Schadenfreude.
Yeah. That concept is what it's talking about in the story. It kind of comes back around again. His dog gets sick again, but he can't find a vet in time, and his dog dies.
Yeah.
So, happy ending.
So what did you learn from this?
I think it's just exploring the concept of that Schadenfreude.
Yeah. So Schadenfreude means that when you see somebody fail or get hurt or do something bad or just be in trouble, then it kind of gives you joy because you can laugh at it because you're not the person who's hurting.
And it comes back around and sort of bites him in the ass.
Yeah,
So.
which is definitely a thing that happens a lot, I think, to people.
You don't want to talk about monkeys and chick girls?
That was in this one. I'm so confused which one's which. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, that was a part of the pornography he uploaded.
Oh yeah, so I
the
thought you
vet's
chose this one just because of this fun mention of Czech girls.
No, I completely forgot about it. I knew he'd put dirty stuff on the computer, but maybe it was subconsciously. On to the next one. Speaking bitterness. Do you remember?
Yeah, I remember
this?
it very much. I remember the other one too. I just confused which one was which.
Yeah.
This is the
Fair
one
enough.
that if it was broadcast somewhere, people would just cancel everything and everybody. And I feel like I don't even understand if we're allowed to publish this podcast episode when we talk about this and the previous one as well. It's just, I don't know. So
It would have a very interesting reaction, I think. Yeah. Okay.
So do we want to sum it up or should we skip it?
No, I think I want you to try.
My God. So a woman called Marla, no, it's from Fight Club. Margaret.
I don't think they say her name.
They say her name all the time, but it's okay.
Well, something we've actually forgotten, and I should have brought it up earlier. That something I really like about this book is that all the characters have fantastic names. They're all given like a kind of a nickname, and this character is called Comrade Snarky in the book.
Yeah.
The other ones we talked about were Conrad Snarky, Agent Tattletale was the investigator. The Earl of Slander was the reporter. So the one we're talking about now is Comrade Snarky.
Okay.
So, do you remember anything about her childhood when she was growing up?
Oh, yeah.
This is a really important part of the book. So her parents divorce, and her mother is always warning her about her father. If he does something to you or touches you inappropriately or does something, just you tell me, da-da-da. But her father never did anything. Her father took her to the zoo, took her to the theme park. Nothing ever happened. So she's grown up basically kind of being suspicious of men, even almost like hating men. And that kind of leads into the women's group.
Okay.
Okay, you take it from here.
Definitely jolting my memory. I forgot these parts.
Good.
Uh,
So what happens at the women's group?
so the women's group opened the door to a new member who want to get in, and
And she's hot.
so it's a man, but it's a woman, and already this is a whole bag of cats. I don't even know how to talk about in our time and day. So
They explain to her that this group is for
women,
Yeah.
and
Your type is not allowed. Yes.
and he or she, they keep saying that I am a woman. Look at my ID card.
Mm-hmm.
And the supergroup's like, can you show us a birth certificate? And they keep arguing about this. And after a long argument and consideration, she gets in the supergroup, or he gets in the supergroup. What do you say to be correct? I don't understand any of this pronoun business.
My pronouns are Zar, Zardoz.
It's gonna be like
Zardoz.
it's gonna be the same deal with a person of color. So it's going to be a person of gender. so a person of gender gets in the supergroup. And they just get into
They're suspicious of her,
because she looks like a man in all the ways, and all the things about her are very fake.
Yeah, I mean, she looks so perfect, and this is the complaint that he is just sort of copying the male fantasy of what a woman should look like, and this is what kind of upsets them, that they think, you've just done everything, created yourself into this model woman kind of thing. So what did they do next?
Yeah, I don't even want to say. It's just
come on.
Well,
what they said, show us your tits.
They start groping her, and all the men or the women start to basically attack her and try to like check how much she is actually a woman, and it goes from checking her breasts to checking her crotch to checking the inside of her vagina even. And it's pretty brutal what happens.
It's sort of hinted at the end that it's a woman, and we've just basically assaulted another woman, or sexually assaulted,
which is the point
woman.
I was waiting for. When I was reading this, I was waiting for something at the end that's gonna.
Well, she says, because the other woman says, "What did you see?" And she's like, "Nothing. I didn't see anything." And she's like, well, let me check. I'm like, "No, it's fine." It's quite obvious that what they've done is basically assaulted another woman sexually.
Which is a very clever ending to, like, all these stories could be written just to shock and disgust and to have this scene just for the sake of having this scene. But even this story ends with a point that's flipping it on its head, like showing how bad it can get just because of what people believe and how they take it to the extreme. And it's at the same time, I feel very bad to even talk about this, and at the same time, I feel like it's a joke with a clever point. At the same time, it's so weird, this book.
Yeah, it's interesting because it was written in a time where these kind of conversations weren't even really in the media so much. Yeah, it'd be interesting what he thought about the story now, actually. So
yeah, maybe this is one of the books that somehow underground wise, like I think a lot of people read this because of Fight Club and his fame. And it had to have influenced a lot of people, and we will never hear or know or find out how or why and when, because people never talk about it. And this might have been one of the things that kickstarted these discussions, because that was the few things that talked about this even.
Yeah, maybe so. Yeah. It's true. All right. I've softened you up for the finale.
So my
I can't believe you're so uncomfortable today.
All this, it just makes me so uncomfortable. So this last story is the one that just kills it, and everybody you read these reviews and they're like, I'm only 20 pages in this book and I already puked out. I can't.
Yeah, they start off with the story, so it's if you can get past this one, I think the rest are going to be.
Then we had these discussions, these messages with Paul, and I'm like, when do you want to record this? And Paul's like, after lunch, and I'm like, yeah, fresh food to Earl, perfect. It's like, how do you get all these discussions?
Okay, so we're on to Guts.
And I was about to suggest that we should suggest and discuss the stories and our stories, and then maybe let people read it. I can't even talk about it.
Okay, how about the first story? You can do that one. Come on.
So this story is about just jerking off and masturbation and how people get into doing bad stuff because they want to masturbate. And
they want to get They want to get a good wank, Philip.
And this is something that I think hopefully prevents many accidents, this story. Hopefully,
Or maybe encourages more.
well, natural selection, Darwin Awards, whatever, but I choose to believe that this story prevented a lot of pain in people's lives, and they were put off by doing these things rather than encouraged to try these things. I definitely was discouraged to try these things, to be clear about this.
I got curious. That's all.
Oh my god.
I'm pervert. Anyway, don't cut that out. All right. Okay. So
Which already
Go- all right.
banned from Starship Troopers, which I don't know why. Okay, go ahead.
I'm unavailable. Okay, so the story is 3 parts, and it's all about sexual gratification, I think.
It's about men trying to most creative ways to jerk off, and I don't think women are involved in this at all. Like, it's about, the mentality of men being too horny and trying to get off better and better and more in a more ridiculous way. That's the story.
I'm kind of a libertine anyway, so it doesn't really bother me. So I really actually the first story is it's 3 parts. So the first story is actually quite funny, where his 13-year-old friend hears about pegging. If you don't know what pegging is, make sure you do a Google search at work and put it on the server. And
They explain it clearly in the book. I like how the chapter starts. You open this book and the chapter starts and it says, "Oh, this is a boy heard about pegging." If you don't know what pegging is, and they explain everything in detail, I'm like, okay,
yeah,
this is the start of a book.
Maybe 20 years ago, it's kind of a bit controversial. I don't think pegging now is such a big deal.
Everything's a big deal nowadays, even more.
So here's about pegging. So if you don't know what it is, Google search it. Make sure you click the image button. It's always better with your wife. So, it's much better with your wife. Or your girlfriend, or your partner, whoever. Or he, they, Zardos. So he decides he's going to try pegging, which is basically stimulating the prostate. It's fine. It's okay. So he's going to do it with a carrot and Vaseline. So he goes to the supermarket and buys a carrot and Vaseline. He's like, this is going to look really weird. People are going to be, the checkout staff are going to be very suspicious. People in line are going to be looking at me. So he decides to buy like some eggs and flour and stuff to make a carrot cake and a jar of Vaseline. So it looks like I'm going to shove a carrot cake up my ass. So he tries pegging.
These jokes are so bad. Like,
I think that's hilarious.
I've never heard jokes that were like more dirty, like everything else than this.
So he shapes the carrot. Good idea. Probably wouldn't I do. I'm too lazy. And then he tries it. Nothing happens. He's like, all right. Yeah, I know. Anyway, so Philip, you look so shocked. All right. So he's like, his mum's calling for dinner and he throws a carrot into like a laundry, into his clothes or something like that. And his mother collects the laundry and then probably the carrot got washed in the laundry. But no one ever mentions the carrot ever again. Even,
I like the mention how the carrot is looming over this family every time they have a party and they meet. And I feel like this is so relatable to everybody's life.
Yes,
I feel like
has something that we know, we just don't talk about it.
Yep.
All right, so moving on to the second story, which is kind of what made me the most uncomfortable, I think. I've made a few mistakes this week. I actually Googled what you call this.
Don't even have this in your storage history, even in incognito mode and VPN and all these layers
I
of
don't care. It's
Tor browser. Don't ever type this.
called urethra sounding. Apparently, it's quite popular in the Middle East. Apparently, I'm not sure how true that is.
There's no way to find out unless you go there and do it yourself.
So basically, someone would insert like a metal rod into the urethra, and it would give you a really great sensation when you're masturbating. His brother
And I know somebody from the Middle East. I'll ask them.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good conversation to have.
Maybe you can ask if you can get one. All right. So not for me. Just ask I can cut this out. This is this power I have.
Cut this whole episode out. Oh my gosh.
So his brother tells him about this, who's in the military and working in the Middle East. And he hears about it and he's really interested. And he's like, I don't have anything, but I have... What does he have, Philip? What does he find as a substitute for metal? Come on.
Before I say, have you watched The Boys, the TV show
Yeah,
about
yeah, of
superheroes?
course, yeah.
Have you still seen the third season?
I've seen all of it. Yeah.
Did it remind you of this when you watched the first season?
Oh yeah, he blows up inside. Yeah. That's what I was thinking too.
I was watching The Voice. I was like, "Fuck! Why did I have to remember this?"
I think The Boys is like just gross without really saying anything sometimes.
It is gross, but in kind of a fun way until this one episode, which was still in a fun way, but it was reminding me of this story too much.
Okay.
So he finds the most accessible and the most thinnest, longest, smoothest object, which is a line of wax that it like tears of a candle.
Yeah.
It's very long and thin and smooth. So he's like, oh, perfect. I'm stoned. I don't
that's
have anywhere to be.
Yeah.
Which excuses his idea. I hope that's why it's there in the story.
I've just
Okay,
remembered. I've just remembered another story actually. So anyway, sorry. Continue.
So he does it and it fails horribly and things happen.
What happens?
So he does it and he feels great, but then when he's done, the wax rod is gone.
Yeah, it's broken off
Inside.
inside. Yeah. He's like, melt out. Piss it out. Melt out. Yeah. It'll just melt.
And anyway, so he has to go to the hospital and he almost dies because complications and liver bladder just gets into his organs.
Yeah, into his kidneys and stuff. Yeah.
And also he delays it because he thinks it would melt and he would piss it out or something, and he doesn't go to the doctor. So I hope this is another one of those like, don't do this and go to the doctor for God's sake. I hope this is what this story does. I hope it's not doing the opposite.
So basically, the parents spend all the money from the college fund on the operation to basically save his life, and they really piss at his brother for telling him such stupid shit. And so never became a lawyer, which is probably a good thing.
I'm already getting sick. Let's not talk about the last part, please.
No, come on, we've come so far. But I have a story to warm you up for the last one.
Oh my God.
Talking
Okay,
about
go ahead.
things you don't do. So a friend of mine told me when he was in school, one of his friends tried something.
It's already leveling up. It's like, it's a friend of mine and a friend of
It's
a
not
friend
me.
of a
I
friend
would
of a
never do
friend.
this. No.
Yes, exactly. It's definitely a friend.
Have you ever heard of purling?
I never until this book.
It's not in the book. This is what.
It is in the book.
No, that was pearl diving. Something that comes up later.
This is something else.
Yeah, purling
Is it even worse?
can be. Depends.
Oh my God, I don't want to hear this.
So it would be when long time ago. They still do it. I checked again online, and I saw graphic pictures. Basically, men would insert a pearl under their skin on their penis to modify the penis and give it a lump to apparently would give pleasure to women. So a friend of mine in school, not my friend, sorry, a friend of a friend. He said, "Don't name me." I'm like, "It's not you, man." All right, I'm cutting
We
all
can
this out.
never go to an onsen together from this point.
No, I don't have this. So he heard about it, and of course, pearls are very expensive, and you need to actually go to like a tattooist or something like that. So he's like, "All right, what do I do?" Wow, I get like a marble. I get a box
Everyone
cutter.
has props. Fucking hell.
Get a marble and a box cutter, and you do it yourself. He couldn't get it out. It's all fucked up. Just complaining at school. I got this marble under my skin on my knob, and I can't get it out, and probably ended up infected and having to go to the doctor and stuff like that as well. So
Swear to God, if you stood up now and pulled down your pants, I saw it, I would feel
I
so
I don't like blood, dude. I could never do. I could never do this.
I just say, if you ever want me to throw up, this is the way. So,
On to the final one.
okay. So we are talking about this,
Guts.
I guess.
Yes. Where the title comes from.
which is supposed to be read while holding your breath, and I didn't believe it, and we even talked about this in the Fight Club episodes, and now I do believe it when I reread it. I think if I held my breath and I read it as fast as I could, I would pass out probably.
Yeah, but he makes a joke. He says, "Read it as fast as you can listen." It's nonsensical. So yeah, but you would pass out anyway. Yeah.
Yeah. So another masturbation story with a pool, which we already suggested, and we keep saying all these things in this episode. If you know the story, you've already. It's just so bad. So pearl diving
Yes.
is called that because it's when somebody comes underwater and the sperm is in pearls in underwater floating around. And you have to catch it because you don't want to leave evidence. So
Yeah, you just skipped right ahead. You should use the word ejaculate so we don't get cancelled. We're doing it professional.
There's no way to not get cancelled after this episode.
Okay, so this is the
Maybe I'm gonna put it under a paywall on Patreon. I'm gonna get banned.
along with your fucking wrestling books or
It's not
kickboxing.
wrestling,
Sorry,
excuse me.
oh, that's the same shit. All right,
It's not.
So, okay, I'm gonna summarize it because Philip is just
Okay.
completely traumatized by this whole thing. So, okay, pearl diving. So a kid, it doesn't say his age. I guess he's a teenager, mid-teens. He enjoys sitting on the bottom of the pool and removing his swimming trunks and allowing the pool filter to suck on his ass. And while he's doing this, he is masturbating in the pool, and he swims up to the top, takes a breath, goes back down, and he's really getting off on this.
And they also talk about asphyxiation, autoerotic asphyxiation, which is a huge problem. Yeah, and this is a part of it too.
Yeah, so eventually he ejaculates, and when he's ready to go up to the top to take a breath, he can't get off the bottom of the pool. Something has come through the drain. Come on, Philip. Put your headphones back on, you pussy. So something's come out through the drain, and it's like first he thinks it's like some blue or black looking snake has come through the drain. Oh, come on, Philip, keep your headphones on. So eventually he realizes that a part of his intestine has been removed or sucked out from the pump. He basically has to bite off his intestine to survive. Yeah, there is kind of a graphic description of what he can see in the intestine.
This part I can't do.
Eventually he escapes. There's a cleanup, and then there's a really shocking twist at the end where his sister gets pregnant as well.
Which is another like one of those jokes. I'm like, how is this so bad?
I don't. Can I make a joke out of this? So the character's name is called St. Godfrey, which is kind of funny. There you go. I finished with the
I
joke.
didn't remember. Which I didn't
Really?
remember. No, I
St.
didn't.
Godfrey.
Yeah.
Okay.
I remember reading it and throwing away the book and never looking at it again, so that's why.
Yeah, so that's the basic summary. I mean, it's at the beginning. That part's pretty rough. If you can get through it, the rest of the stories are fine. I mean, it's a good book. It's well written. Philip has lost all the color in his face. Don't know if he's here or not. All right. Okay.
All of this, so much, like there's, like you think, like if you haven't read this and you're still listening to us, you think all of this is okay and you can get over it, but it's so much at the same time so quickly, and there are so many details and levels, and it all feels so real. Like I feel like somebody told this story to him, and
He said some jacuzzi accident, but he never went into detail about what happened.
So this is one of the most horrifying things I've ever read about and could imagine happening, and it's like.
Shall I read a paragraph for you?
This is one of the this is one of the things. If I didn't know, I would be a happier man. It's the definition of you can't unread this.
Yeah, it's fine.
So
It's fine.
So I have a clip from the writer's workshop that I talked about at the beginning.
I hesitate to tell a story with a baby in the room. This is a terrible story. But years ago, and this became sort of the model for my archetypal sentence, a sentence that comes down to one word. And the sentence is completely innocuous, like a truckload of ammonium nitrate fertilizer, until this one word, which is the trigger. And the sentence was in the newspaper years ago when I worked as a bicycle delivery messenger. And it was in a consumer help column. And it started out something like, well, the warm weather's back again, spring's here, the birds are singing, the flowers are blooming. And this warm weather is going to draw more and more kids to the local wading pool, where many of these small children will be attracted to the gentle suction of the water inlet port. And some of those children will sit on the port and be instantly disemboweled. I read that sentence like, do. Birds, flowers, suction, And then it lands on disemboweled. Oh my God. I just remember my hands going numb and the paper like fluttering to the floor. And then feeling like this instant rage against Susie Homemaker, who wrote that column, for setting me up for that horrible, horrible. And if I can ever write a sentence that is so seductive and so innocuous, and then lands on such a horrific moment, then my life will be complete. That is my archetypal sentence.
All right. Great.
So this part I want to include. That was from the documentary we mentioned, Postcards from the Future, the Chuck Palahniuk documentary. So yeah, I think this is how his supervillain story started when he decided to make this writing style.
Maybe so.
Yeah.
Well, you did it.
Okay.
You made it through. I'm proud of you.
This book.
You haven't even read the whole book.
Exactly.
I can't believe
This is
it.
the only time, by the way, we talking about like a book, and I haven't read it, and I don't think it was a bad decision for me personally. But I can't believe Paul read it 3 times.
I give this book 4.25 out of 5.
Out of 2.
Out of I give it 3 oranges out of 5 bananas. Okay.
That was much better than I thought it would go. I was expecting so much worse stuff to be.
I just said whatever pops in. Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was afraid of. Something would pop in, and it was only oranges and apples, so I'm very happy. Let's not talk about it ever again.
I did say bananas. So.
Bananas are fine.
Okay. Not phallic.
So I couldn't believe when we mentioned this on the other episode that you wanted to talk about this, and I couldn't believe that you wanted to talk about embarrassing masturbation stories.
Well, they weren't mine.
You're still here.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about more? We're done.
No, I think we're done.
Okay. I don't want to touch this book ever again. Like I don't understand how you do it. I thought I would be able to deal with it as a grown ass man now that I am. I can't.
Well, I hope I've convinced people to read it, actually. Oh, come on. I'm cutting all that out. So, all the negativity. All right. Thanks, everyone, for listening.
Thanks.
I hope.
Bye. Thank you so much for listening. If you've made it this far, please rate us on Apple Podcasts and iTunes. And on the next episode, it's finally happening. We're gonna do weekly episodes. It's gonna be a bunch of them, and all about the epic fantasy book by Brandon Sanderson. The first one in the Stormlight Archive series, The Way of Kings.